See that coin right down there? That's the coin that we're talking about. It was a coin like that that Jesus held up and said, whose picture is on this? They said, Caesar's. And Jesus said, well, then give back to Caesar what's Caesar's. And then what did he say? And give to God that which is God's. You see, that's the tithe. Jesus and the disciples were tithers because that was part of who they were. That did not end because Jesus came. But what happened was people's insides changed to where we don't have to give with a clenched fist and grinding teeth anymore. We can give the tithe back because God has changed us from the inside out. God's tithe goes, in the scripture in Malachi, it says, goes back to the storehouse. And that's just the church that you have decided to be a part of. Whatever church that is your storehouse. And God says, bring the tithe back to the storehouse so that there may be plenty to help the people that need to be helped. There may be plenty to do the ministries that we need to do. There may be plenty to reach out to those that are not even yet a part of our church and love them with God's love. Bring the tithe to the storehouse, to your local church. And then he also said in Malachi, your tithes and offerings. That's how people are robbing God. First the tithe that goes to the church, and then the offering which is even above the tithe. That's what we should be giving to Salvation Army, to K-Love, to TV preachers, to anybody else that we want to give. That should be our offering. Unfortunately, when we start giving offerings without tithing, God does not count that as tithe. Unless we brought it to the storehouse, God sees that as offerings and still feels like he's being wrong. Because the tithe goes back to God. Well, let's take a look at another thing about tithing. Tithing means that we love God. The word love is not an emotional love at this point in time. It's not like we get all gushy inside when we tithe. You know, I've been tithing now for a lot of years, and I've never felt gushy inside when I put my money into the collection plate. It's not an emotional feeling. It is a choice that we make. That's what the word love means, agape, in the New Testament. We choose others over ourselves. We choose God over ourselves. And so when we tithe, we are choosing God over ourselves. Let me give you an illustration with these apples. There's 10 apples in here. One of these is the special apple we're going to save aside for the tithe. All right? And so we come, we get our paycheck at the first of the month, and automatically we're going to take 3 of these things out and put them down for our mortgage or our rent or whatever. Because then we pay our car payments, and then we pay our insurances. Got to pay the insurances. Then we've got some food that we've got to be able to take care of. We've got, sometimes it's as much as this when it comes to utilities. Got to pay the utility bills. And oh yes, there are clothes that need to be bought, all of those kind of things. And so we have now spent all that God has given to us, and we have God's ready to give back to him. Here's God's tithe, his 1/10. But then we remember, oh yeah, that's right. Our kids need an extra amount of money for a place where they're going. So this is the only place I have left. So pretty good. God's tithe tastes real good, by the way. And then we have the understanding that, oh yeah, we forgot about all of those birthday and anniversary gifts and all that coming up this month. You better take that out too. God's apple is really good. And then, we forgot. We have credit card debt. We need to pay the credit cards. I don't think I can bite a big enough one in the apple to do that. I didn't practice this. I thought, no problem, I'll just take a bite and chew it up. You can't chew fast when people are sitting there looking at you. So, you're going to have to use your imaginations. All that's left is the core. Because we remembered everything else that we had forgotten when we put all of these 9/10 out. And so what do we give God? He gets the core. He doesn't get our tithe. He gets whatever's left over. Is it any wonder that God said through Malachi, you have robbed me. I have given you all of this. Not only have I provided for your needs, I've even given you the tithe that you can give back to me. It's all a gift from me. And so why do we not tithe? I would say we probably don't tithe. One of the reasons is because our finances are not in good shape. We really have no idea where our finances are. And so we scramble around all month long and hope that there's enough at the end of the month. And if there's something left over, then we'll throw it to God and say, here's your tithe, God. In the day of Malachi, they were supposed to be bringing the best of the flocks when they were first born. And what the people of Israel started doing was to bring to God's temple all of the lame animals, all of the blind animals, all the animals that were blemished. They were giving those things to God as an offering. And God was not happy. Can you imagine? He has given us everything. And all we have to do is to love him back by giving him that 1/10 that he's already provided for us. So the third thing then, tithing. It's not only a matter of love, but it means that we trust God. Trust is critical to our tithing. That's what Malachi said. God says to us, trust me in this. This whole thing is an issue of trust. I have a letter that was written by a couple up in Naperville, Illinois. I just want to read it to you. It was from Jeff and Julie to their congregation. And this is from Jeff's perspective. Julie and I started attending our church in January 1993 after moving here from California. We moved here for a business opportunity that ended up not working out, and we soon found ourselves in a desperate financial situation. We were behind in our rent and our car payments. We had back IRS payments, 16 credit cards with more than $40,000 in debt, and not enough food in the fridge to keep our tummies full. And on top of that, we had started a new business. Well, in the middle of all of this, our pastor had challenged us to include our finances in our commitment to follow Jesus. And I really struggled with this. It wasn't that I didn't want to support our church or set an example for others to follow. It was, in fact, that on occasion, Julie and I were so broke that we ended up going to a friend's restaurant and asking for free food. I thought, if I'm struggling to keep my family, how can I commit what I don't have to God? What am I supposed to do? Write a check for 10% of my income and hope that something happens? Our pastor urged me to trust God and give it a shot. So after prayer and discussion with Julie, we decided that God would get the first portion of every check and not just what we were willing to give every week. We learned to make God the first priority in our lives, and we had no idea how we would get by. During the week after this decision, my brother and I were dropping off flyers at a construction site looking for work. We started a carpentry company, and we met a builder and he asked if we would be interested in doing their work for them. He had a house that was ready for us to start immediately, and about 20 more to do during the next 12 months. Julie and I no longer questioned how we'd honor our financial commitment. Julie and I decided to increase our giving. Now, if the story ends there, it would be a good story.